right, thank you and welcome. Please appreciate Thuhang. She's going to share her story with us, but let's first give her a big round of appreciation.
I would like to walk you through for the journey that where that mean how the hope and determination and also reinvention form throughout my life. First thing first, that I'm Thuhang Tran. I was lucky that been introduced from a friend to Sharon, and that's how the story coming to you today. So, this is the journey that have been go through from I was born, and when I instructed for the polio, and also that mean all the during the Vietnam, the Saigon War in 1975. The first thing is infusion of hope. So hope is the only way that build up and be with me when I was, at least I mean my memories have been formed and remembered. So I was born as a normal child, run and walking. And then by the time I'm 2.5 years old, I got constructed with polio. And later on, when I came to the States, the doctor diagnosed it as a post-polio. So that is the time that when I was born, as the time of during the Vietnam War as well. It's a heated time. But during the time that when I got, my parents found out that I had polio, and they very frustrated and also devastated. So my dad had been searching and seeking for all my treatment for myself, like been through acupuncture and also like electronic shock to make sure activate the nerves that maybe can help me to walking. But after so many attempts or some different kind of treatment, there's no, I paralyzed from the waist down. And to get at least have something for myself, so my dad have been, did further research. So finally he found out there's another program that can help the children had a polio, can come to Germany to get treatment. So I got approval, the paperwork to go to Germany by myself as a 5-year-old child, and to get treatment to like surgery and then physical therapy so I can walk normally. And the paperwork is approval for, I think, June 1975. So with that, my mom and myself as was child, because I'm excited that I got the new clothes with the luggage so I can be travel, because I didn't know that I'm going to be travel by myself. However, I just excited I got new clothes and travel, right? I couldn't imagine, that I would travel by myself. So it's the hope that I will got treatment and can be walk normal again have been turned upside down when the fall of Saigon came in April 30th, 1975. So I think in the video that we say that is the darkest moment for all the South Vietnamese people, because that the communists took over over the South. So during that time, my dad has been based further from the house, because we live in city, Saigon City, and my dad was based at Contour Air Force Base. And we lost contact after 2 days. And then when we heard, because we live very close to the Tân Sơn Nhất Airport, so there's a lot of bombing and artillery, and all the shadows over our roof. And it just get like that. And all the neighbors helping us to dig it up the bunker, temporary bunker, by our kitchen floor. So we lived in the bunker for about 2-3 days with a very limited food and run out water, and it's very hot and humid. And I was like, at that time, I just didn't know what's going on. And my brother and sister was crying, and my young uncle is like scared. And one time I remember that because it's so hot, so we all decided to just get up and then just stay in the living room. And then when we heard the siren went off, and then we all jumped. My brother, sister, and everyone jumped, right? My mom couldn't get me down to the bunker. She just told me to my uncle and my brother, catch me. So those are the moments that it just stuck like engraved to my memory. Then April 30th, the North Vietnamese army took over the South, and they changed all the names, all the city names, completely. Even alleys, you know, in Asia, especially Vietnam, we have a lot of alleys, right? Small little alleys, we have a resident live there. So they changed every single street alley to honor the North Vietnamese leader. So with that, then they order all of us, everyone who have a relative that working for the South Army Vietnam, to burn all the paperwork or picture related to them. So I was secretly hiding some of the picture of my dad and some of the paperwork related to him, and just hide it in some of the dirt around the bunker. And then, of course, my mom burned all other paperwork related to my dad. And a few months later, that we found out that from my dad's friend, that he witnessed that my dad helicopter crashed into the Conto River. And his luggage just bounced out from that helicopter. So he took back to us with his belongings. And we, of course, because it's the war, right? There's a lot of other people lost their relative, their loved one, and maybe lost contact completely. So we accepted with that and move on. We had the funeral without his body for him. So when I sat on the church, in the church that looked at his picture, and I said, without his body, maybe God just left him, maybe he was somewhere else. So that's hope that infused in me during that time, that I believe that my dad lived somewhere. He not die, right? So after his funeral, because in Vietnamese tradition, we have wear a red, white band right in front of my collar, so to mourn him for 3 years. And we move on with our lives. And the communist force took over a lot of people's house, and people became homeless just over the night. They live under the bridge, and they forced people, women, children, to the famine. That were, or most likely those famine areas was war zone. So a lot of people lost their arms, legs, because of the mines have been blown up. And I was like any other child. We ate rotten food, was be hungry for many days, and I got malnutrition badly. So my stomach like bloated all the time because of the rotten food. And it's pain all the time. So whenever it's pain, my grandma had to be tap on my stomach to have it calm down. So when I mentioned my grandma, that is the picture in the middle, that's my grandma. She wear a traditional dress right there. So because my mom and my brother and sister have been forced to go to the farming, so because I'm the youngest and I was handicapped, so I was stay with my grandma and my aunt. During that time that I saw my grandma and my aunt, it's like really sad. So I did to my dad how I can be happy and be surviving mode. That way that I can help my grandma and my aunt to go through the tough time, because they been through the difficult time as myself as well. So that's what I try to be positive. That's what hope continued to help me go through those struggles. And as you see the picture there, that I'm skinny girl with, at that time I think I was like 7 or 8, something like that. And when I start school, after about a few months, my mom couldn't harvest anything from the farming because the government didn't assist anything. My mom did the farming by bare hand and with the help of the neighbor. So I remember one time that I've been through hungry so many days, and my mom brought back with the corn on the cob, with the bag of corn on the cob. And I kept eating corn and cob for like, I don't know how many, until I became sick. And after that, corn still my go-to food, and I still love until now. But the rest of the other food, I've just never touched it again. So, and because of my mom didn't have money or anything to have the soil or fertilize, so she decided to take my brother and sister back to the city. And my house, very small, with 3 families living there. Actually, 2 families, my aunt and her 2 twin sons, my mom, my brother, sister, myself, and my grandma. So it's very tiny, and we just live every corner of the house that allowed to. So my mom had to do all kinds of jobs to be survive and make sure bring food to raising us. And my brother and sister, even though they are like teenagers at that time, but still working, to help my mom. And when every day in the afternoon, that when I saw the neighbor kid, went home after the school, and I just say, oh my gosh, what's going on there? They're so happy and lively and have fun. So I begged my mom that, Mom, I want to go to school. And my mom, because she didn't want me to be through all the teasing, the bullying from the kid, because during that time, the government or the people in general saw the handicapped people as like useless human beings. The handicapped people is like a burden to the society, burden to their own family, burden to the people that means surrounding them. So after a few rounds that I want to make sure my mom at least feels secure that I can be okay with school. So I started at school very late age, like 8 or something like that. And after a few months, my teacher helped me to be start the 1st grade. So because of the mindset from the people and government, so the communist government didn't have or assist handicapped people or encourage them to go to school. So the school didn't have any ramp or accessibility for the handicapped people. It's all stair. So when I was little, my mom carried me on her back upstairs to the 3rd floor, carried me down every day like that. And when I get older, a little bigger, and I got heavier for sure. So I didn't want my mom have to do that. So I had to reinvent myself. How I can manage around. When I was little, I crawled. So my arm was my leg, right? And my leg dragging on the floor. So all my trousers have a hole in my knee. So my mom keep patching different kind of animal to make it fun for me. So when at school, at that time, I reinvented. I found a way that how I can manage around myself. So I sat up and used my hand to move my knee. But I sat on the down level. When I came to the States, the doctor observed me to moving around like that, and he called duck walking. So that's what I squatted for years. Went to school, climb upstairs, and come stairs like that every day. And so they did in school, and not because of that, will be prevented me to like don't have fun, right? Didn't have fun or hang out with my friends. So that's what when I get home, I play with my neighbor kid, all kind of game that they have. And I just squat them like that, just have fun with them. At the same time at school, one time that I figured out a way how I can slide down to save time. So usually at the school, they have built the handrail around the stairway. So one time I just asked one of my friends, because that friend happy carry my bag every day, upstairs and downstairs. So I just create some kind of fun. I said, let's do some sort of fun, and we just slide down like that. One day, I slide down, and then by the time we hit at the basement of the 1st floor, and there the principal stood there, and she looked at me and said, "You're in trouble." So She called my mom to the office, and all my mom got is blaming that my mom didn't know how to raise me, because that I'm not supposed to do that at school. So I promised my mom that I will ever to be, I will be good. So that means I don't want my mom to be insulted from the school principal or anyone. Because I sat there, I heard them just insult my mom. So again, with that, when I got home, I said, no, I have to be excel at school. I have to be good. So that's what I mean. I can show people that with education, I will have better life. So that's what me, that when I determined those. So 5 years later, there was a big life change for us. That one day, my uncle with one gentleman came to our house and said that my father was alive, and he lived in San Antonio, Texas. I was like excited and crying, and at that time my mom, her business getting better, so she selling rice, pin by pin, back to the people, so that means she can get some money and then can raise us, right? So I asked the neighbor to come to the market to make sure that my mom and my sister come home. And by the time my mom and my sister get home, and we all cry happy, and the whole neighborhood very happy that my dad's still alive that time. And then, because of the control of the government, the communists, every single letter that we wrote to our dad, to our dad, and our dad wrote to us, it took 6 months. Because every single letter had to be opened and inspected. Make sure that there's no any word or anything against to the government. However, my dad very happy that he found us and located us, and then he asked the second letter that he sent to us, that means to asking us to send him the picture and birth certificate. And at that time, my mom said, we didn't have any picture. That's time, and I said, Mom, no, we have some. So my mom said, where did you get it? I said, the picture that I didn't listen to you, I already hidden it. So she said, oh my God, all these years? I said, yes, Mom. So that's what those, at least picture that, because at that time I didn't want to forget my dad. I didn't want to lose, that mean his image or his picture, because at that time we thought that he's already died, right? So after the lengthy of the paper process took forever. For forever, that means we separate for 15 years, right? And then we found out that the paper about like 10 years. Mm-hmm. So during the time that we waiting for the paper that we can come to the state. So at that time between the U.S. and the government, the Vietnamese government, it's very still like intense. Even though they have a program they call ODP, if you heard about those, that means the Operation Departure Program, that they allow for all the people, all the servicemen who work with the previous government can come sponsor their family to the United States. And between 1980, that's what the time that 1980. So between 1980 to 1989, that because of the length of the process, we didn't know that if we could reunited with my dad. So my brother escaped the country by boat. So probably you can have a friend and people that, Vietnamese people, that mean, if they say, I escaped the country, I came here by boat people. That's what happened. And it was also a very darkest moment for the Vietnamese people as well, because a lot of people has been escaped by boat and they sacrificed their life. They didn't know that mean if they can come to the United States. Some of them like die in the ocean. But just because of the hope that someday they can find freedom. So that's what during that time. And back to our, finally, we continue to move on with our life because we didn't know that we were going to be see our dad, right? And after 3 attempts, my brother, 3 attempts escaped the country by boat. My brother got caught into prison. And my father had to send some money back through the black market, because at that time there's no relation between U.S. and Vietnamese government. So my father had to send money through the black market so people can find a way to give us the money. My mom used those money to pay for the expense for my brother to escape the country, and also to bribe the people, the policemen, that can release my brother from prison. So after 3 attempts that didn't succeed, so we move on with our life by do archive job. And during that time, I just, again, reinvent myself, how I can learn a new skill and to be survived as well. So I learned different things, do different jobs. I have done archive job, like sit there, do embroidery for the clothes, and also even making the tie. You know, the tie, the car tie. That's what I sit there. I do one string at a time on the rubber. So one time that means my hand just like bleeding and careless because of that. And
I need to switch to the U.S. We're running a little time.
So with that, 1989, we received I think it's summertime. Can you go to the next? We received the letter from the U.S. Embassy say, congratulations, now you are come to have an interview and you can come to the United States. So that is my life change and my family life change again, one more time. And the new life in the U.S., it was at first, it's a happy ever after, right? Because after 15 years we separated, and we was able to unite with my dad. However, it was challenging, culture shock, completely for us. And because we lived apart for 15 years, there's a lot of differences in our thought, in our minds, and even the way that how we communicate. Differences between my mom and my father. My mom think or act in East. My dad think or acted in a West way. So they are like completely opposite. Same for us as well. Language, completely new language, and we struggle with that. Struggle in our own family, with our life, struggle with facing with the culture shock, and also facing with the language barrier. And then at the same time, my dad had bought a health insurance for me, that means prepare for me when I come to the States so I can have surgery. So that's what in the fall, the winter of 1989, I had a surgery for my knee. I spent 2 years for physical therapy, intensively, learn how to walk again, and learn ESL at the same time. The moment that, the first time ever I stood up from the ground level to the level that I can stand, right? I could stand, and I could feel that there's some kind of chemical in my brain changed completely, because I was in the ground level for so long. And I see the face, the expression from my mom and my dad, they was like crying, but they happy. And because of one income, my father had tried to be, because he signed a paper that he guaranteed that when he sponsored the family to the United States, that he will be guaranteed that he covered for all the expense for us. We won't get any assist from the government or any kind of program that the government provides. So my brother and my sister working to help him out, and I, during the time of 2 years, physical therapy, and then went to school at night with my sister. After work, she came home and picked me up, and both of us learning ESL, English as Second Language. And technology technology came to me at first because the first time I saw my dad put the computer hardware. He built a computer from scratch at that moment. So that's inspired me. That's like completely ooh and ah at the moment. So how you put the hardware piece together become that computer workstation. So when I finished my ESL, and then I took the class as a electrical engineer. So I enrolled the first semester. And after one semester, I said, oh my God, how the circuits can put together like this. And I feel like, I don't think that's me because it's so, I feel at that time, so dry to me. I want something creative way. And I shared that with my dad, and he said, well, if you're not so sure, why don't you just go to your school and talk with the counselor? That's what happened. When I talked to the counselor said, give me the catalog with all the computer. And at that time, I really liked to become computer graphic design, because I want to create something very creative way. Unfortunately, because we didn't have enough money for my dad to send me to UT Austin. That's where they offered the graphic design, computer graphic design. So I ended up studying computer science as my major because I drove every day, 1 hour. I got out of the house 6 a.m. in the morning and didn't get home until like 10, 11 p.m. because I spent the whole time at school and worked there as part-time job. And that's what I keep joking. I said, and I'm proud about as well. I say ramen noodle is my best friend. So that's why I ate that in library and anywhere. But it's a great investment for education. Because like I mentioned earlier, with me when I was little, and to be better, I always find out that education will lead us to different kind of opportunities and the better life. So being said that, I'd like to share with you just a high level, key level. Here's what throughout my life and throughout my professional career. So these are the 3 things that maybe I hope that you can, that's key take away for you, right? Embrace the change with a survival mindset. So through my life, through the war, poverty, and then crawling from under the ground, and then sit up, and then after stand up after my surgery. I always have to be that way to be survived. How to be survived that, and then you don't have to do much, right? Just think about different perspective in life. Reinvent. Most likely, I think in our professional world that we can say problem solving, right? People love to solve the problem. But it's not like a rocket science. It just happens to your day-to-day activities, and even at work as well. How you interface with people, with your coworker, and when the production issue comes, what is the problem? How to solve it? Root cause, right? We can know. So it's just that our activity, day-to-day activities. And since we are graduate and working in professional world, right? Throughout the years, and I was lucky that I had a great mentor, just like you, Angelo, that we had Sharon. And then now Sharon have been, I believe in fate. It just happened, it's just meaning the fate that I met Sharon and we like partnered to write the book. And that's what this is, I said, establish your identity, right? How do you especially focus on your strength? And it took me a while for me to figure out how I can excel at work and what I will be good at it. That's through the session that I had with my mentor, that they helped me to say, well, you're good at technical. Why didn't you just stay in technical software and then build up from there? That's what built up over the years. And here I come today, and that's I learned. And like I shared with Angelo this morning, every single way I go, like even this event, I learned a lot. Learn, I mean, how people interact, and learn how that mean people organize things. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for listening to the story. And I hope that you enjoy reading the story, and maybe it can relate some sort of whenever you've been struggle, I have bad day, or you hit the rock bottom. Just think about that. It will be hope, always infusing hope and full of hope, and some days will be better.
All right, let's appreciate Thuhang.
We can take about 5 or so minutes to answer any questions from the audience. It's a great book, right? Incredibly inspiring. When you wrote it, it was very intimate. Like, you had to reveal a lot about your family. How does your dad and your family feel about the book?
At first, especially my dad, he was reluctant. He was reluctant that he didn't want to start writing a book. The reason why he was, because it's so, most likely it's reminded him with all the bad memories. He saw a lot of his friends during the war die, and it's so painful. And it's happened to me too, because a lot of emotion. Even now, when I say about it, I still carry those emotions with me. But when Sharon talked to me about it, and then I said, Dad, I talked to him a few days, said, but we have to face it somehow. One way or the other, we have to let it out. And after that, he agreed that, okay, we can write a story about it. That's what, when Sharon came to Bentonville, Arkansas, and she sat down in the interview with us, so that's why we overcome it. And my mom and my brother and sister, they said excited about it. They're really happy that their story and our story just come to life, and at least share with everyone. That's how we've been through, especially that after the Vietnam War, and there wasn't a lot of people outside Vietnam know about what the life and how we live under the communist rules, I mean, how we face in those.
Thank you so much for sharing your very inspiring story. I wanted to ask you, what would your message be today for people who now live under oppressive regimes like the Viet Cong? How would you instill hope within them that someday things could change and they may have a happy life?
That was a great question. Like again, you mentioned about hope, right? And I hope that whoever that means they still live under those communism, not only Vietnam but other countries as well, that they need to be continue to have a purpose, the life purpose, not like give up. Even though that is under the communism country or any other government, you need to have a focus and find out what is the meaning of their life and how they can make small act can impact other people. And don't lose hope or lose our focus on that, but always seeking for the purpose in life.
Okay, and now we'll move to the second part of the talk.
Okay.
Sharon.
All right,
Thank
great.
you.
Let's
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
Thuhang one more time. Thanks so much. Thank you. All right, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for coming and hearing Thuhang's story. I just want to spend a few minutes with you talking about the power of storytelling, okay? Because stories connect us. They create that burning desire to learn about others, and every single one of us have a story. But a lot of times we make assumptions about people when we meet and see them, and human beings have that story that create that connection. And so learning that story is powerful currency for understanding each other and creating that inspiration and getting that hope and understanding the resilience of human beings. So I'm just going to share with you my personal story. My parents were married at the tender age of 19. And I often say that the path to the Chief Diversity Officer role at Walmart started long before I was born. It started with my parents and what their lives were like. So much to the disappointment of both sets of my grandparents, my parents decided to get married. And they were from very different religious backgrounds and very different socioeconomic backgrounds. And so as I grew up, I listened to very negative comments when we'd get together with our relatives, right? My family on my father's side were very disappointed that my father chose my mother. My mother's side, they thought my father's family was arrogant and out of touch. So we always heard these negative things. And I don't know about your family, but when our family get together, they just tell it the way it is, regardless of how negative it was or bad. So my parents made a very purposeful parenting decision to move away from relatives because they wanted to stop that negative stereotypes of comments that occurred. So I grew up believing that you should never live near your relatives, okay? So we moved thousands of miles away and we only saw them because we had to see them. But that experience with my parents made them very strong advocates of the civil rights movement and the women's rights movement. So they made another parenting decision when I was 12 years old. They moved us to a neighborhood that was predominantly African American and Hispanic. So we moved to this neighborhood and we were not welcome. So we had our yard set on fire. Our home was vandalized several times. My parents owned a small landscaping business that was also vandalized. But I was never afraid. I was 12 years old and I just wanted to make friends. I wanted to know who am I going to sit with on the school bus every single day when I go to school. And so our family lived in that neighborhood for 30 years. And what it taught me is that we're all more similar than we are different. We all want to be respected. We want to be included, and we want to be valued. And so that created in me this core belief that we all deserve respect and inclusion. And that's what led me to all my work in diversity and inclusion, but it started with my parents and what they did for me. We're going to talk a little bit about why stories are so important. And some of it is because they're so memorable. We'll go to the next slide. You're always going to remember the story. You may not remember the data or the facts, but you're going to remember those stories that stick with you. A lot of things that Thuhang shared today, you're going to go home and share with other people because it really reminds you of that. And when you think about things at work and you're presenting pitches or ideas, or think about how do you put it in a story format, right, that people remember. And I know Google's big on data, I know that, right? Math and science are really important, logic's important, but there's also that emotional content. And stories are emotion in motion, right? And so how do you link a story to what you're trying to sell at work and make it more understandable and more relatable, I think is important. Because stories touch the heart, and when you touch the heart, you change the way people think and you change behaviors. So we'll go to the next slide, and it talks about the different types of stories. So when you're telling stories, particularly at work or at events, there's a couple of different genres. And you'll hear leaders that share them this way too. So one of the main stories is, who am I? So when there's a new leader that comes to a group, a lot of times you'll hear who they are, what's important to them, life experiences that they've had. Or they may talk about why I'm here, what's my purpose, what do I hope to do? They'll talk about values and action, what their core values are and how they demonstrate those. Then also vision, and then there's teaching stories. So what I'm going to close with is a vision and action story. So I've told you a lot about growing up and my passion around diversity and inclusion. So we'll go to the next slide, and this is what I call the swimming pool story. So I lived in Arkansas for 12 years while I worked with Walmart. And my whole life, I've been passionate about diversity and inclusion. I feel like my parents did an incredible job moving us to the neighborhood where we look different than everybody else. So I've wanted to do the same with my children. And so we've done a lot of diversity immersion trips. We invite a lot of very different people to our homes. 4 times a year, I used to invite about 200 people to our home from Walmart. We're from different countries and different backgrounds. And I was always very purposeful on what we did. But my main message to my kids has always been speak up and speak out. If you see something that's not right, do something about it, right? Speak up and speak out. That's what everybody's obligated to do. So one day in Arkansas, I'm at a community swimming pool. It's Memorial Day weekend, and I have my 12-year-old daughter with me, okay? And she's a good swimmer, so I'll start with that. So she jumps into the pool, and I lay down on a lawn chair and go to sleep. That's bad parenting, okay? But there is a lifeguard, and my daughter's a good swimmer, and I needed a break from a long week at work. So I'm sleeping. I'm kind of dozing in and out, and I hear this man yell, "Why don't you morons get out of the pool?" Now, when we had walked into the pool area, all of the children in the pool were white, except for 2 African Americans. So I heard that man yell that. I kind of woke up, I sat up, and I looked in the pool, and I didn't see the African American children. So I motioned my daughter over. I said, "What just happened?" And she reiterated what the man had said. So in that moment, I have a lot going on. Am I going to do what I've told my children for years and years about speak up and speak out? Or am I going to be silent? And this is in a community. I don't know the man that yelled it. I don't know anybody else at the pool. What am I going to do? And so I thought about what am I going to do? And I decided that I was going to address the man separately after the holiday weekend was over. So on Tuesday, after Memorial Day weekend, I drove to this swimming pool area. And it was only me and him that were there. And I hadn't told my husband or people at work where I was going to. But I walk into this building. He's sitting behind his desk. I said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about what happened on Saturday." I said, "Did you say, 'Why don't you morons get out of the pool?'" And he jumps up from the desk. He says, "Are you calling me a racist?" And my first thought was, nobody knows I'm in this building with this man by myself. You know, and I thought long and hard about how do I reply to his question. So I said, "I'm not calling you a racist, but I'm concerned about how it made all the children and everybody feel when you yelled that." So he proceeded to tell me that he calls Hispanics morons. He calls women morons. He was what I would call an equal employment offender, right? He let me know that's his approach on life. So I tried to explain my point of view. He tried to explain his point of view. We ended the conversation with neither of us agreeing with each other's point of view. So actually it was 2 years later, I went back to that pool with my daughter. It had been 2 years since I'd been to that pool. My daughter and I walk in. It was another holiday weekend. We walk in, he says, you. He goes, "I know what you do for a living." I don't know how I found that out, probably through Google, okay? But he said, you, I know what you do for a living. He said, "I want to thank you. I want to thank you for having that conversation with me." He said, "I haven't called anybody a moron since." And I said, "Well, you and I are always connected because of that conversation." So that's a values and action story. And I think that's what we all have to do is determine what our core values are and how do we live it, and then how do we share their stories about it. So I'm going to click to the very last slide, or second to last slide, just to close up. So what I want you to do is always share your story about inclusion. What we did today, it's a great icebreaker. It's something you can do at team meetings, you can do at events, but find out people's stories. Have curiosity about other people. Find out what their story is and share your story. And then look for those moments that are teaching moments or learning moments that you can share with people that also have an underlying theme around respect and inclusion for all. And then have a point of view, and then speak up and speak out when you see things that aren't wrong. But Thuhang and I want to thank you for your time today. We really appreciate you having us here. Thank you.